Ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
On this episode of EV Rider, we're going to give you a look at the Model S Plaid, which is even faster than this Model S 100D. In fact, the Plaid is the fastest regular straight line production car in history. And please notice I said regular production, because I do realize the Croatian Remat's $2.4 million hypercar is the one EV that can currently top the Plaid's claimed 2 seconds 0 to 60 time. I caught up with my friend Jake for a ride in his Model S Plaid.
The criticism from your sports car, enthusiasts of Teslas is that they're monsters 0 to 60, but they just die after getting up to 60 or 70 miles an hour. The acceleration just totally plummets, and that's not true with the Plaid at all. It will just keep pulling all the way up to its limited top speed of 175 miles per hour now, which actually Tesla recently increased that, because when I got the car it was 163, and so they upped it to 175, and they say that they're going to unlock 200 miles per hour at some point, but it's unclear when and if that's going to happen. So,
and what made you go for a Plaid? What made you go for a Plaid? You had an X. Why the change?
So the thing I didn't like about the X, which and my daughter is still upset about me trading in the car with the doors that go up for this. But the thing I didn't really like about the X was it handled like the big bulky car that it is, right? Or SUV. It's you take turns, you just feel the girth of it, the mass of it. Even in little things like just parking, I just don't like having, really large vehicles. And so when I would have to take my X in for service, I would always wind up with Model S loaners. And I always liked the way that they drove and handled, better than the X. And then my wife got a Model 3, and that thing handles like a go-kart, and it's just small and nimble. And I was always a little like, I want to get out of this X. So when the Plaid came around, and I just saw, how unbelievably quick it was. Basically it's the fastest production car, period.
Right.
So there is the Rimac Nevera, and that one, I think I have seen a drag race with it, and it is faster for sure. It smokes the Tesla Plaid, but they're only producing like 100 of them, and they're like $2.5 million. So
right.
I think we can kind of rule that out of your everyman's car, and but for a vehicle within a reasonably accessible price, there's literally nothing that out accelerates the Plaid up to like its top speed of 160 miles an hour. So it was just kind of like, all right, I want that.
That's understandable. That is understandable.
While the Plaid will be tough to beat for years to come when it comes to acceleration, pulling down all that speed is its weak point when pushing it to its limits.
You've got to upgrade the brakes, because the car, its one Achilles heel, if you will, is that it just has steel brakes, which totally fine for everyday driving. Honestly, that's one of the beautiful things about Tesla, is that you don't have to use the brake pedal very much for everyday driving. You one pedal drive. Right back there where we stopped, we came to a complete stop. I never touched the brake. You don't touch the brakes unless you're coming to a hard stop.
Right.
So, the steel brakes are more than adequate for street driving. They're totally fine. But if you're going to start pushing it on a track, you need to upgrade the brakes. And Tesla's coming out with a kit for that. They say, I think, in the summer, and it's going to, but their kit is going to be like 20 grand. So the odds of me actually buying that are pretty low. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Have you had an opportunity to go somewhere, say, Blue Ridge Parkway, or just someplace fun where you could
absolutely
see how it handled?
Yeah. I get up to the mountains several times a year, both to ride motorcycles, and took this car up there, and and it's just, it's such a blast. It's so much fun on twisty roads. It's great. But you can sling this thing around corners like you wouldn't believe. So it's it sure is fun for that.
And go ahead and run down the different modes that it has.
Okay, so for everyday driving, I leave it in Sport. My old Model X was a Model X Performance, and I would actually leave that one in Ludicrous because I felt fine modulating the accelerator, not having the acceleration be too much. This one, I don't leave it in Plaid. If I leave it in Plaid, the accelerator is so sensitive, I'm afraid I'm going to just like run right into the car in front of me if I'm not watching it. So yeah, everyday driving, I leave it in Sport. Now, yeah, if I really want to, show off or just, have fun with it, then yeah, I will put it in Plaid.
Of course, no look at a top-shelf Model S would be complete without a run or two in Plaid mode. And yes, it does live up to the neck-snapping hype.
Yeah, preparing for launch. So the suspension is dropping in the front.
To cheetah mode?
Yeah, they call that cheetah stance. And now we're ready. Cheetah stance complete. So here we go. And that's enough.
The only problem with Plaid for motorheads is it will make every gasoline muscle and sports car you've ever experienced seem slow. Perhaps the greatest strength of the Plaid is its ability to go from a drag strip king to a top-notch cruiser.
And how do you like it as just a regular luxury car?
So I think that's what people don't really talk about much on the YouTube videos. Everybody kind of just gets caught up in the blinding speed of it, which I mean that's understandable. But for me, the big draw for the Model S, it's such a great daily driver. It's such a practical car. There's so much cargo space. Going from a 6-seater Model X to the Model S, I didn't really lose much by way of storage or practical use because I can fold down that back row, and it is a hatchback, and I can fit like a ton of stuff in here, especially with the false floor of the trunk there.
Mm-hmm.
You open up that thing. I mean, right now I've got like a couple camping chairs in there and like my charging cable. I got a whole bunch of stuff in the back, and just you don't even notice it, or it doesn't bother you because you've still got all this extra space. And so the seats are really comfortable. It's got ventilated, cooled seats and heated seats. The yoke is heated or can be, so yeah, you've got a lot of creature comforts. For a car that also has 1,020 horsepower,
Right.
which is just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
what other 5-seater car are you going to find that is also out accelerates everything else? Like, there's just the combination can't be beat.
And speaking of insane, the Plaid runs just never get old.
Ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
Incredible. Wow. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah,
That never gets old,
we
right?
probably did like an 8th mile there or something like that. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it
awesome.
pins your head back. It pins your head back.
Yeah.
In the Model X with Ludicrous, I mean, it just about did like pin your head back. But if you wanted to, if you kind of fought it, like it was like, okay, you can. This one is just like every time it's just bam.
Yeah, this is great.
Moving from performance to Tesla's decision to introduce a yoke steering wheel while at the same time ditching a turn signal stalk and gear shifter for touch controls has concerned some. But on my first drive, I found Tesla's implementations well thought out.
Yeah, well, I can see even already, it didn't even using the turn signal the very first time.
Yeah.
It seemed very natural to do it
Intuitive.
this way.
Yeah.
And so far, no problem with the yoke whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, the yoke, it'll aggravate you when you're learning it. There are a couple of times that I, grabbed it there, but then then you get used to it and it's no big deal. And now I can switch back and forth between like my wife's Model 3 with a regular wheel and this, and it's fine.
And the one thing that I wondered about the yoke, I could see on regular drives, I don't think I'd have any problem. But on longer drives, I find that I like to rest my hands in different positions, including at the 10 and the 2.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about that on long road trips?
What's interesting is that the yoke presents its own possibilities that don't exist on like a regular wheel for different hand positions. Like what I often do on road trips, I'll just rest my hand on when it's an autopilot. I rest my hand on top of the left side of the yoke, just right there on that knob on the top. I just rest my hand there.
Yeah.
And I find that to be just as comfortable as when I would have my hand over the top of the wheel, and maybe even more so, because your elbow is still rested on the armrest of the door there.
Now, of course, this Model S has the traditional steering wheel as opposed to the yoke that Jake has in his car. And while Jake has gotten used to all the touch controls, the one thing that he tells me that hasn't become intuitive is turning the horn button into a touch control. Despite all his time in the Model S with the yoke, that still hasn't become second nature. Regardless of the placement of the horn, the bottom line is the Model S Plaid redefines the definition of a muscle car. If you've enjoyed this episode of EV Rider, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can bring you more adventures in EV motoring. Thanks so much for watching.